Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportBikeTrackGear.com, and today we're going to give you a complete tour of Max Van's MotoAmerica SuperSport Suzuki GSX-R750. Okay, like I said, we've been asked multiple times if we could give people a look from the inside out of the MotoAmerica SuperSport bike that we ran in 2024. The bike that we're running this year, right, under the M4 Ecstar Vision Wheel Suzuki team, essentially the same bike. I purchased two fully MotoAmerica prepped SuperSport bikes from Team Hammer last season, okay? Only a couple of changes to this year. I worked on it, maintained it all last year, all the adjustments, any repairs that need to be made. I did all that stuff myself, and along the way, there were a few things that maybe I did a little bit different than the team. And then you fast forward to this year, I've worked on the factory team now all season, and I've learned a couple of different things there that I'm now blending into the work that I do on the bikes that Max is riding. While we're not riding this one currently in MotoAmerica during the 2025 season, he has ridden it at some precision track days, of course, and it is to the same spec with what we're using currently in MotoAmerica. So, comparing this perhaps to your track day bike or even a street bike, one of the things that you want to be able to do is you want to be able to get the bodywork on and off very easily. So, this one has race bodywork. Actually got a hybrid kit here. I've got a Armor Body's upper and lower with the Hot Body's tail. The Hot Body's tail is sick. The wrap that you see on the bike, that is my man, Reese Briotti over at REB Graphics, does the best work in the business. I installed it, looks great. Front fender, this is a Team Hammer thing right here. And this is really cool. So the fender comes right off, quick release. These are brackets that they make in the race shop. They actually came on the motorcycle. And what's really nice about that, when you remove the front fender, let's say that I'm going to do a front wheel change, right? We want to put a new front tire on the bike. It's already mounted on the rim. You're able to change the front wheel without removing the calipers from the fork bottoms. With the fender off, it allows the forks to turn out. You're able to roll it out, roll it back in, slide the axle back through without removing the calipers. That is a huge advantage. Come over to the other side of the bike. We've got our new video guy here. This is Video Clark. This is actually the maiden voyage, video number 1. You can see on the inside of the bodywork, Armor Body's heat shielding. That stuff is the best. We've got a couple of plugs in there for wet weather. Looks like we might see a little bit of rain this weekend at Jersey. And there is another attachment for the upper. When we come back, we're going to have the bike on the ground. We'll get the upper off and remove the tail. Okay, for the upper fairing, got a couple of release pins there. I'm going to pull out on bodywork like so, and it comes literally right off the bike. You can see I've got the ducts. What I used here is I used windscreen well nuts. Right, and the ducts are attached to the upper, so that comes off as one piece, super convenient, okay? Now for the tail of the motorcycle. This is attached using fasteners, and what I've used here, I like to use tapered seat, stainless fasteners with a nylon washer that's designed to be used with tapered fasteners. That really spreads the load nice over the bodywork, and it helps the surface that gets clamped to the frame of the motorcycle or to the rear subframe. It helps to preserve the bodywork, make it last a whole lot longer. When you have the metal in contact with the fiberglass and you're cranking down on it all the time, that can be pretty hard on it over time. So doing this just simply makes things last longer. Tail section comes off very easily too. Got to make sure you disconnect your GPS antenna right back there. Okay, now let's talk about some of the performance parts that we're using on the motorcycle. Start off with the titanium carbon M4 exhaust. This is our #1 selling exhaust brand here at SDG. Made in Texas, great stuff. It looks great, fair priced, always makes great power. Obviously, they're a sponsor of the team too. That's a full titanium system on the motorcycle. For the clutch, on Max's bike, we like to use the Suter slipper clutch. That's what I've got installed in his bike right now as we've run all last season, all of this year. He loves the feel of the clutch, so that's the one that we use. Samco hoses, let's be honest, those are on there because they look amazing. Allegedly, maybe it's gonna make it run a little bit cooler, but they look amazing. For the cooling system, to pass MotoAmerica Tech, the only thing we can use for engine coolant is water, just straight water. So there is distilled water. Anytime you're gonna run water, make sure you're using distilled water. It's free of deposits. To help with the cooling of this bike, one of the modifications that was made by Team Hammer, and this is kind of Chris Ulrich's project, converting the 750 into that next gen 750 so it could run in MotoAmerica, they added an oil cooler to the motorcycle. So we've got some custom brackets, custom oil cooler hoses, right, that are run, and that helps to keep the oil cool, right, with the SuperSport prepped engine. For the radiator, we are using the stock radiator. Radiator guards, the ones that I use on my bikes, those are the Cox Racing radiator guards. They're available in a bunch of different colors. That's kind of cool. You can personalize the bike just a little bit. For brake lines, Spiegler brake lines, master cylinder, we've got the Gale Speed Master. For the lever guard, we like the Driven. My man Gnome over there, he always personalizes it for Max. That's kind of cool. Front calipers. This year, we were able to install stainless steel pistons in the calipers to help combat brake fade a little bit. It gives us a little more consistent performance. And what you'll want to do is, over the season, these calipers, we're only using the main seal for the caliper. The dust seal is not utilized. That's done to reduce drag a little bit, helps the wheels spin more freely. Free power, you'll often see that even though we're not winning the races right now in this gnarly SuperSport class, Max will typically have one of the highest trap speeds. So what I try to do is I try to really focus on removing as much drag from the front end as possible, making sure my rear axle is aligned perfectly. I have a laser system that I use to do that, right? And then of course the chain is properly adjusted and well lubricated. In between sessions, I'll pull these calipers off, you scrub the pistons, right, with a toothbrush and some bike wash, Ecstar bike wash, rinse it off with water. Like to rotate the pads, we use SBS, DS1, DS2, or a combination of DS1 and DS2 pads. We found the SBS to last a long time and offer amazing performance from the time when they were brand new, almost all the way down to the backing plate. Excellent, right? Vortex Racing rear sets, Vortex Racing clip-ons. For the engine covers on the bike, the cover protectors, this is something I'm doing a little bit different than the team on my personal bikes. We're using the GB Racing engine cover protectors. These have been a tremendous brand for us. We've used them on all of our race bikes, and they've done a great job for us each time that we've crashed. So for that reason, we've continued using GB Racing. We've got the Öhlins fork cartridge kit with the Öhlins fork extenders on the top of the forks. On the front end, we also have the brand new for this year, Team Hammer adjustable triple clamps, right? You're able to change the offset, right? Change the inserts in it. A little different feel than stock, gets the motorcycle to handle a little bit different. The flex can be a little bit different. In the rear of the motorcycle, we're using the Öhlins TTX rear shock with Team Hammer developed suspension links for the rear. You can have either a flat or a progressive. For details on how that all works, you're going to want to reach out to Team Hammer directly. Currently, we're running the flat link in the back of this bike. A Team Hammer lightened rear rotor. And you'll note, and this is something that does not come on a stock 750, here's a tone ring, right? So like an ABS wheel speed sensor. This all had to be modified for this bike because it did not come from the factory with any of this. So you've got the tone ring fitted on the rotor, custom brackets that come off the rear caliper hanger and hold the rear wheel speed sensor. It's mounted right there, so it monitors your rear wheel speed. We're going to elaborate on why that's important here in a second as we move around to the other side of the bike. Of course, Vortex rear sets over here. We're using the EK 3D chain. We've had great luck with these chains. Very little stretch, very little drag. Great product, of course, Vortex sprockets front and rear. This has got the RNG toe guard installed on it. For Max, you know, with the quick shift sensor here and the shift lever, he likes his setup a little bit different. He tends to drag this a little bit, so what I do is I shorten both the foot peg a little bit, and I shorten the toe piece, and then I make sure to safety wire the rubber boot protector, right, onto that. Another look here at your Samco hoses. OEM clutch perch and OEM clutch lever. And then over here on the clutch side of the bike, you're going to see down here at the bottom of the fork leg, there is another wheel speed sensor with a custom mount. This mount was actually made by the late Ben Fox. Tone ring here on the rotor. So in order to have the auto blip, so this sensor that you see here, this allows for clutchless downshifts and clutchless upshifts. In order to facilitate all that, one of the things you had to be able to do was you had to be able to have readings from the front and rear wheel speed sensors. So that system works in conjunction with the throttle bodies that we're going to show you. Those have been modified heavily. This bike from the factory had a cable, okay, not ride-by-wire. And the only way to auto-blip this thing or to comply with the MotoAmerica technical regulations where they're able to get in there and change your throttle opening is you had to have a ride-by-wire to work with the Solo Engineering ECU and the system that's on the bike currently. Okay, one of the things that we're doing constantly while we're out there is every lap, every corner, we're collecting data. Jimmy Fox, Max's crew chief, is going to use the data along with Chris Ulrich, right, to work to help Max to improve his lap times and overall performance. So we already talked about the wheel speed sensors. That's one data point that we're monitoring. A couple of other critical ones are going to be suspension movement. You'll see right back in there, that's a little dark, might be hard to see, but there is a potentiometer mounted to the forward side of that TTX GP rear shock. That measures both the distance and the speed of the rear wheel up and down, right, the shock. And then you come over here, and here on the front fork, you'll see we have one there that does the exact same thing. Up front, you can see here we're using the Öhlins steering damper. We've got a Moto Holders fairing stay that's being used on the front. That's just going to be a little bit lighter than OEM. Okay, to match the fairing stay up at the front of the bike, we also have a Moto Holders rear subframe that's utilized. And you can see if you come over here too, Clark, here is the ECU. The ECU and the wiring harness on this bike, these are all custom made for the next gen GSX-R750. So none of the OEM wiring harness is used at all. It is all entirely replaced. You can see we're using a lightweight anti-gravity. I think that's an 801 battery, right? That's fit in there actually quite nicely. That looks great. On the bottom of the subframe tray, We have a quick disconnect. I have a jump pack that has the other end of this, so we're able to start the motorcycle using that in the event that there's any issue with the battery, any low voltage situation. You always have that ready just in case. To help the rider hold on to the bike, we're using the tech spec tank extender that was developed exclusively for the Suzuki GSX-R750. We use that along with some of their tank grips. This tank grip is custom. I custom cut this so that we didn't cover up this kick-ass wrap that my man Reese Briotti made, right, from REB Graphics. I mean, you look at this, it's on the frame, right? It's on the little side panels. The kid does amazing work. Look him up if you want your bike wrapped and you want it to look as good as this one does. Vortex Racing gas cap. The ECU Master dash, and that's for solo, so that's all part of the next gen electronics kit, right, that is you have to use in order to compete in MotoAmerica SuperSport class for the class balancing. You've got obviously different switches here. You've got your main power is mounted over here to the fairing stay. That's a custom bracket that I made. There's your ECU power. Just kind of give you a look at the dash. Obviously, we're running a remote brake adjuster. This has a pit lane limiter, so when Max is coming down the hot pit, right, he's able to push that in so he doesn't exceed the allowed pit lane speed and end up with another speeding violation that Dad has to pay. When we come back, I'm going to remove the fuel tank and we're going to give you a look at the modified throttle bodies and just the routing of the wiring harness underneath the tank. Okay, now we're under the hood, so to say, okay? You get a rough idea of the wiring harness, the routing. At the end of the day, what you're aiming for here is you want to make sure you don't have any points of contact right where you think the harness could end up rubbing through, okay? So spend a lot of time looking at that, a lot of time moving things around. You want to make sure certainly the harness is not pulled tight, right? Too tight to where when things are moving around, it's pulling on it. So while some of this may look a little bit messy, trust me when I tell you there's a lot of thought put into all this where everything is routed to ensure that we're not going to have any issues with rub throughs. You have a rub through when you're out there. If it's a hot wire, right, obviously you rub the ground, you're going to pop a fuse and you are not going to finish that race. And that would be terrible. Now, to get the auto blip in this bike, they had to modify the throttle bodies and install on the throttle body an actuator, okay? So instead of it just being cable driven with your right wrist, it is now all done electronically. This has an OEM Ducati ride-by-wire throttle on it. Nice short throw, very easy pull. And you can see here, there are no cables. That is all done over the wire. All the mapping on the motorcycle, like the engine braking mapping, all that stuff, the fuel mapping, that can all be customized. There is some of the program that is, it's FIM MotoAmerica that can't be edited at all. The only people that can edit that are like MotoAmerica Tech, right? I don't do all that stuff. Jimmy does all that. But that's in there. You know, you can make your engine braking adjustments. Max is actually able to adjust the engine braking just a little bit when he's out on track. You can either increase it a little bit or back it down a little bit because it's all done right electronically at this point. We're using the slipper clutch from Suter in conjunction with that, but the maps are built in such a way that it just enhances the function that's already built in to the slipper clutch itself. I feel like we've done a pretty good job. I think I've covered this pretty well. I'm sure there's going to be questions and comments. Leave all that stuff in the comments section of this video. I answer all that stuff myself, and I'm always here to help you get the same result from your next project that we get from ours.